Welcome to the Marvel Cinematic University podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Canton. Oh, sorry, I did it again. I'm actually Sherlock Canton III. Excuse me as I raise the magnifying glass as we are continuing our coverage of the Disney Plus series, Agatha All Along. Episode 3. And guys, I gotta say, before I even do the Patreon thing, before I even introduce this wonderful panel that we have with us this evening, I have to make a statement. I gotta say something a little personal, something that's been on my mind ever since the events of yesterday's episode. Now, one would think that mentioning a specific name should not get somebody all like emotional or feel some type of way. But if you are an OG listener, if you've been listening for the past, well, let's just take it back to 2021. So WandaVision came out. We were having a great time. I was in the midst of the Easter egg hunt, and the biggest part of my hunt was for one Mephisto. And I waited. They kept dropping hints, devil in the details all throughout. This is red, a red book here, and all this other stuff. And quite frankly, at the end of the episode, at the end of the season, I should say, I was wrong. There was no Mephisto to be found. And I gotta admit, it affected me. It affected me personally. I felt it in my heart, felt it in my spirit. And even though the fact that the guys at the time had made fun of me because I did not get that part of the show right, I will say that I did get the White Vision part show right. Just so for the record, I did make a statement. If you ever want to go back, if you're a new listener, if you ever want to go back to WandaVision episode 8 in 2021. And you could listen to my statement as I made that statement regarding that. But nonetheless, guys, our long national nightmare is over. Mephisto is in the MCU. So I just want to say, everybody who stuck with me through these past 3 years, as I've been kind of hiding this pain that I've been feeling in my heart. And there's a part of me that just wondered if this day would ever reach. And we are here that Mephisto is actually in the MCU. So give me a second. Take a breath. Okay. I want to thank everybody for being with me, and to all the haters. Y'all really not haters, but just in the sense that I thank everybody for just supporting me through this time as we now have Mephisto in the MCU. So nonetheless, we also have the Marvel Cinematic University Patreon, patreon.com/MC University Power. You can get our bonus content such as Jay Christie and myself discussing the first episode of The Penguin as we got into the whole Matt Reeves Batverse. A lot of fun talking about that, and good old Colin Farrell disappearing into the role and everything going on there. Plus, we talked about the Thunderbolts trailer. One of the rare times we hit something on the back end in the Patreon. So if you want to hear some Thunderbolts thoughts, you could get those in the trailer too. And the plight of our New York sports teams that we also discussed as well. So, in the meantime, and also, by the way, if you're watching on YouTube and you see these wonderful faces on the screen, just like, comment, subscribe, the whole 9 yards. Appreciate you guys for doing that. So, we will start with our panel with the super producer, Jake Christie. Jake, how are you?
As we discussed before we started recording, I'm just a constant low-level anxiety about a lot of things, but the New York Mets specifically.
Yes, September 30th now looms very large as we wait to find out the Mets' fate in the postseason. And we do have a wonderful twin set of guests. Number one, as always, we leave the key under the mat for him, and he always shows up. Our guy Rod, aka the black guy who tips. Rod, how are you?
Hey, what's going on, man? Appreciate y'all having me on, and I stand with you in solidarity, throwing up the Black Power Mephisto for your dreams finally coming true, man. I believed in you.
Thank you. The one Denzel glory tear is coming down my eye, even if you don't see it right now. Thank you, Rod. I appreciate you, sir. And returning guest, returning friend of the show, Jake, you better get that spreadsheet out and add another one to the list. Dalbin Osorio. Dalbin, how you doing, sir?
I am doing well, my friends. For those that can't see, I'm wearing a shirt that says I'm rooting for everybody black. So when Rod was saying the Black Power fist for Mephisto, I was like, that's right, because Mephisto is black. So I'm rooting for him, not Eric Adams. We're live and in effect. Let's get to it. I'm so excited. I'm so excited that this is the episode I rejoin you guys on.
A lot of people say that New York is the Westview of America.
This motherfucker.
And we are off. Let's go.
I think we're probably a couple hours away from him doing a press conference and blaming a coven of witches for his predicament.
which means we're probably one day away from him taking the trek down the Witches Road and being done with us for the rest of his life.
Yep.
I'm really hoping.
He can't. You know, I'm simultaneously glad that this is happening, but simultaneously gonna miss him because, oh my god, what a cartoon character this is. Jesus Christ.
There's a great tweet that has been circled around again, which is "Say what you will about Eric Adams. Seriously, say it. It's probably true."
Yeah, he's like if a Simpson cartoon mayor came to life. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
like just a pure, a character.
Well, think about the best character that you could envision for a mayor. I guarantee you, Eric Adams has done more shit than the one you thought of. Like, I guarantee.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, man, Eric Adams. We'll definitely find time to talk about him somewhere behind the wall at some point. But in the meantime, Agatha All Along. So this episode had more than Mephisto. We'll get to it in more detail in a little bit, but as customary when we haven't had somebody on during a series, we ask them what their initial thoughts of the first couple of episodes were. In this case, Dalbin, what were the vibes that you've gotten so far from this series? How have you felt?
Yeah, I've said this on a few of my appearances with you guys before. I think one of the cool things about Marvel is Marvel really works when it's like a political thriller with superheroes, or like like the Sanderson sisters with superheroes, right? Like when you kind of take their existing properties and kind of just dump them into stuff that works. And this WandaVision corner, right? Like this creepy, like witchy vibe, especially like again around the fall and stuff, just really works for me, dude. Like I just think they know what they want to be. They're very secure in what they want to be. Unlike Secret Invasion, which was very wobbly, right? Like you almost kind of felt like they didn't know what they wanted to do.
That's putting it very kindly.
But yeah, you know, I'm being respectful to Nick Fury in honor of Black History Month, 11 out of the 12 months of the year. But I love Catherine Hahn. I think she's awesome. I think, you know what I love too? Marvel is treating, like the Marvel casting folks are treating these projects like how Shawn Michaels treats NXT. He is just finding the dopest, thickest black women to put on these shows. And it is beautiful. It is beautiful. It is beautiful. I love it, AC. It's been dope. I've enjoyed the first 3 episodes.
Wonderful. I don't think I could have put that any better than you did just now. That was just tremendous stuff by you. And so let's jump right into this episode. I think there's a couple of things that kind of stand out to me. One, I just love the fact that Agatha does not give a shit about any of these people, and the way that it comes out throughout each episode is hilarious. Especially the way that the episode ended just made me just like die laughing. As poor Sharon, dearly departed, they could not save her with the potion at the end, the remedy and whatnot. And she goes, "Who's Sharon?" And then it rolls into this very up-tempo, high-pitched song. And this is somebody who just died. That was so funny. But I think also from an Agatha perspective, I think one of the things that stood out to me the most is how it seems like that the Nicholas Scratch, what happened? Did she trade him for the Darkhold thing? Seems to be something that's weighing on her, and she's trying to hide it, but everybody knows about it. So I'm trying to see where that goes eventually at some point. But honestly, this episode was a lot about hijinks and people facing their fears and a lot of witchcraft, some homemade witchcraft as they go into the house and stuff along those lines. So, Rod, I want to ask you some just general thoughts. Like, what were your feelings about watching this episode and where you feel the series is headed at this point?
Oh man, this is a very good episode that really affirmed, like, the stuff that I was wondering in the first two, where I was like, are they gonna really spend time with the secondary characters, or are they just gonna like brush past this? But if the episode format is gonna be each one of these tribulations is like its own like episode, its own escape room style puzzle to solve, everyone's character arc is getting like something. And the fact that
Yeah.
they were able to do that with all these characters, and still keep the mystery of the teen going. But I feel like there's all kinds of clues with the teen as well. That sort of intrigue and detail is what kept me glued to my seat. And so, yeah, this episode just, it really just affirmed some things for me.
Nice, nice. We'll get into that soon. And Jake, how about you, sir? What were your general thoughts?
I feel like until they got to the house, I was actually kind of unsatisfied because I felt like until they got to the house, it was actually kind of like a not that propulsive episode of television. They kind of
Yeah.
were just standing around and waiting for stuff to happen, so I was kind of a little disappointed. But once they got to the house, and I love the motif, there was a bit of a tiff on the Discord because someone said, "What is this parodying? Is it supposed to be Pretty Little Liars or Big Little Lies?" I'm like, open the schools. This is a Nancy Meyers movie. What are we doing? And then a bunch of people said, who is Nancy Meyers? And I had to act like only that I'm somehow the only person who knows who. And it became a whole thing where people were like, only white people know Nancy Meyers. And
I love our Discord. Yeah.
I was not having that. Her movies have made too much money for that to be what we're talking about. But anyway, I thought it was a really well done parody, down to the fact that they were all wearing turtlenecks. And I felt like that balance of tone, like I think the thing that worked well and what makes it a little different than WandaVision is that like in WandaVision, the tone is like it's somewhat subverted in moments, but it's mostly throughout. Whereas I like the way that this episode almost felt like if Nancy Meyers directed a horror movie, or not if Nancy Meyers directed a horror movie, but if you were to take a Nancy Meyers movie and add a horror movie onto the last 30 pages, it's like, hey, this beautiful kitchen is actually hiding a secret. The thing about Nancy Meyers movies is the beautiful kitchen is never hiding a secret, but what if it was? And so I thought that was great. Little note, little fun fact: Catherine Hunt, of course, has been in a Nancy Meyers movie, so I thought that was fun. She's in The Holiday for a few minutes. But yeah, as that guy who's always looking for the motifs and the director influences, I thought it was really well done. Like the kitchen bit, because that's the whole thing with Nancy Meyers movies. It's the kitchen is always the big deal. And so yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Nice, nice. And Dalby, how about you? Coming into this episode, I was thinking about like where do we go after those first two episodes? It was very fascinating. I think Rod makes a great point as far as getting into the other characters of the show. How much will they be a focus? And I think a lot of them are clearly questioning Agatha, and they should, because she seems to be a very traitorous, backstabbing person as she tried to avoid the trials, which I think is a very interesting part of the episode, because if she's gone through the trials previously, why would she avoid them now? And it seems like this is a case of dealing with the trauma of whatever happened to her son. So I guess kind of going off that, and then whatever thoughts you feel like you want to add on that, please feel free.
Yeah. So first, I want to say that white people are not the only ones that know Nancy Meyers movies. Something's got to give is the shit. So like,
so the guys gave is fucking masterpiece.
So anyway,
people don't want to. I thank you, Dal, because thankfully, some people logged on in the morning and said like, but I was feeling like, no, you're not gonna do this to me on this. Come on.
Yeah, and I feel like I should have had your back, but I very much like when you show a very, very consistent consternation over somebody not understanding how great something is. So I was like, I'm not going to defend Jake. I'm going to let him do it himself. I'm going to let him do it because I think Jake is in the right here and he doesn't need my help to do this.
I appreciate that.
So I texted AC after the first two episodes, and what I said to him was that if WandaVision was about what happens when you try to, when your grief overpowers you, then I thought this was very much like what happens when you don't deal with your grief. And this episode drove that home, man. Like, I think you have all of these witches very much and connected to their traumas and connected to the things that they saw. They all feel some level of guilt over what happened, right? Guilt over what happened to the mom. Catherine Hahn, to your point, AC, I think she didn't want to relive the trauma, because
you can see that she was clearly, it hurt her. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think very clearly she sacrificed her son for the Darkhold. Like, I think very clearly.
Now here's a question before you continue, as I surmise.
Yeah.
is it that she willingly sacrificed, or was this a deal with the devil?
So I'll tell you my theory. So
Please feel free.
I'll tell you my theory. So there was so much sexual tension between Aubrey Plaza and Catherine Hahn, Rio Vidal and Agatha, that I believe there's a question that Rio Vidal asks her. She's like, "Do you remember why you hate me so much?" And I'm of the belief that there's something there that's connected to Nicholas Scratch being given up, right? And I think Rio Vidal's character, whether she's the mom of Nicholas Scratch too, or whether she embodies something greater than what we're being led to believe. I think there's something. I think she played a role in whatever came from Nicholas Scratch, and I think that's why Agatha hates her. So to your point, I don't know if she willingly gave up her son, or she was convinced to give up her son because of whatever role Aubrey Plaza's fine ass is playing. But I loved it, dude. Yeah.
I appreciate that you said that, because this opens up the door for me to bring this point up. So we get the mention of perhaps an agent of Mephisto. And you could think like, oh, it's just Mephisto. And that's we could just think about that aspect. But then I thought, hey, so Rio comes after Agatha with the alleged intention to kill her, but doesn't. Warns her of the Salem 7 coming, and almost seems like she wants her to complete the trial.
Yeah.
So this leads me to believe one of two things. Once the phrase "agent of Mephisto" is mentioned, this is where I'm left with Rio's character. Either she is the gender flipped version of Blackheart, as she mentions Blackheart in the first episode, talking about her own Blackheart. The gender flipped kid of Mephisto, named Blackheart, or she's in fact Lady Death. And if that's the case, if that's true, then if she's Lady Death, then it creates the real connection to Mephisto. And honestly, either way it does. But now you could see why, because remember, Agatha also tells her, what you call it, I can't kill you, you can't kill me. There's almost like some...
It's not allowed.
It's not allowed. So why is that? Yeah. So that's where it leads me to believe that she's either one of these two people.
So to that point, I think she's Lady Death. That's what I think, and because right before episode 1 aired, they suddenly, like, remember, like, we were hearing that Aubrey Plaza was just in this, and then right before episode 1 aired, it said that she was going to be in some other stuff after, and I was like, that's interesting. And we know from the comics that Lady Death tends to appear at the end of universes. And we're about to deal with some incursion stuff, right? And the end of timelines and all that stuff. And so I think her character's personal connection to Agatha, right? And Lady Death in the comics can raise the dead. She doesn't like to do that, but she can raise the dead. And if Teen is who we believe he is, right? If Teen is who we believe he is, and I'm of the belief that his grief is leading him to try to bring back his mother, who better to help him bring back his mother than the living embodiment of death, right? And so that's kind of where I went. But I also think, and Jake, you've nailed this so many times before, that stuff is fun and like all of that. But I love when Marvel doesn't only make me think about that stuff, because here you have these witches who are dealing with so much shit. Like you lost, like, so many of them have lost parents. So many of them have been like discarded by the people who loved them and cared for them, right? And then here's Teen, the innocent one, right? Who is more than willing. He's like telling Agatha, he's like, fine, I'll drink it. I'm gonna kill myself.
And then she protects him.
And then she protects him.
Let me do the Windhurst. Why did he do that?
Yeah, and
does he know?
Because the thing is, Asa, you said that
in
this episode you see that Agatha doesn't give a shit, and I think that on some level that's true, but I think a lot of her not giving a shit is a doth protest too much. I think, like, she is going out of her way to show how little she gives a shit, and, like, I just simply do not believe her. I think that some part of her feels good about being in a covenant, whatever. Covenant again. Covenant. Jeez, I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. And
It
I think
happens to the best of us.
And I think that she obviously has some
Yes.
protective instinct about the team
Yeah.
so I think that there's a lot of stuff going on with her that I think that Catherine's playing that really well
Yes.
because I think she's playing the vulnerability and also, also being cruel. Like she
Yeah.
is cruel when she doesn't know Sharon's name. Like that is an actual act of cruelty. But you can tell it's coming from a place of insecurity or like
Yes.
of uncomfortability as opposed to her like she actually is not above all of this. Like that's kind of because it would be not interesting if she was. Now I have a question for you, AC, though,
Yeah, please.
because you said why is she not doing this stuff if she's gone on the Witch's Road? Did I miss something, or do we know for sure that she actually has completed the Witch's Road before?
Well, okay. So now that you
Question.
mentioned this, as we think about it, could it be the only way that she completed the Witch's Road or the trial is if a deal was made?
Yeah.
And that deal with the devil
Mhm.
is kind of where it leads back to the once you mention the name, it feels pretty clear that we will see Mephisto at some point at the end of the series or as we go along here. So then we'll get our answers there. But I think the greater question, I think that's to Dalbin's point as far as why this series so far has been compelling beyond the mystery aspect of it, is because the doth protest too much of Agatha really plays so well because it's funny, but also at the same time, like underneath, you could tell that there's something else there. And I love that that's being explored piece by piece. Rod, I wanted to get your thoughts on everything that we just talked about.
Oh, so I not to be a party pooper, but I'm not sure we're gonna see Mephisto. I like the way they said it felt like it's so direct. It's like you're spoiling the writing for like the next 6 episodes because now we're just all waiting on Mephisto to show up. It was like I think it felt more like a hey guys, we know y'all. We know y'all talking about it. We know y'all listening. We know y'all
A little
looking for the
wink.
clues.
A little wink.
Yeah, like I
A little
don't know
wink
if
and a
we
little
get
nod.
him. I don't know if we get Mephisto in this.
Well,
but, I'm not saying it's impossible or anything, but like
of course not. Of
that's
course not.
like with it being so direct, it felt like a.
Yeah, I agree.
If
Here's where my one pushback to that is I felt that way about Loki season 1 with Kang. Like they were being real direct about Kang coming. Like they were like, "Hey man," and then abuser X135 crushed his role, right, and like did great. And correct me if I'm wrong, we know who's playing Mephisto, right? It's Sacha Baron Cohen. Is that
We do.
confirmed?
that is correct.
We do,
Yes.
yes.
That is, yes.
So if you're gonna make him the big bad of this corner, of this corner, right? Like the WandaVision, Agatha, White Vision, leading into Young Avengers, Children's Crusade, if that's the route you want to go, I think you bring him in now, and because there, to your point, Rod, like you mentioned this in Loki season 2 when we talked about it. The worry with Loki season 2 was it going to be so Loki centric that you forgot about the supporting characters, not crackers. Sorry, Jake, that was not a white joke, I promise.
I knew you misspoke because I'm like the supporting characters in Loki season 2 are mostly not white, so I think that you knew that.
But that was something Rod mentioned, like being afraid of what happens to the supporting characters if you only focus on Loki. Whereas I think in this, they're making us care about these supporting characters, and I think the way to then drive home the threat is to have Mephisto kill all of them. Like, I think that's the way you drive home the threat. Yeah.
So let me
go ahead. AC, I'm sorry.
Go real quick. I just want to read a quote from Jack Schaffer, who commented on this episode, and she goes, as far as the Mephisto nod goes, with these shows, so often there's something that is at once a joke and a wink and a nod, and actually has something legitimate underneath it. As we all know, Mephisto is a character who's very wrapped into Agatha's storyline. I mean, people have to watch, but we're always playing with the audience in that way.
Yeah.
So I mean, it does speak to Rod's point as far as them being direct, but also like it does speak to potentially there is a devil at the end of the road.
I think that there's alluding to it that it's going to happen, but it's not going to be as direct as like there's not going to be a big fight with Mephisto at the end of this. Not that I think anyone's expecting that, but I think that's what Marvel generally does, is that like they'll drop hints to something and then like do it 20% differently than what you might expect. And so like that's kind of why I'm like, okay, they're teeing it up. Like, same with this in the same scene with the bit about talking about her son. Like obviously, what they're trying to make you think is, oh, what if is the teen secretly her son? And like,
Right.
since that's what they're trying to make you think, for sure that that's not the case.
And that's what I
You know
mean. Is not that like Mephisto won't be in the MCU or won't have anything to do with this series, but more
Yeah,
like
of course not.
I don't think it's gonna be like, well, bam, Mephisto, episode 9.
No.
That's the explanation to everything, y'all. Like, I
No,
feel
I
like,
agree.
Yeah.
Right.
I,
No,
like,
I
I
agree
feel
with
like
that.
you
I
don't even,
agree. Yeah.
like you wouldn't even mention them if you were gonna do that, because then that's the
Yeah.
big surprise, right? So,
Mhm.
that being said, though, I love the character portrayals. I love the idea of like who's the teen. I'm not trying to solve these mysteries really. I'm like enjoying these mysteries
hmm
and hoping that they give me something that people aren't expecting. Like the Aubrey Plaza of it is just so like intriguing because it could go anyway. And I don't know which way it could go. I do know they have a history. Um Clearly they know each other. And then the other thing I was gonna say is I wonder how powerful the spell Agatha is under. Like, how strong is it? Like, are these
Yeah.
actual hints that we're getting that we're playing off as like, oh, that's her being nonchalant, or that's showing she doesn't care? And
Yeah.
some of it could be like, she's out of her fucking mind sometimes. She don't know what's real, what's not sometimes.
And
Like,
she's kind of attempting to battle it without even
yeah,
knowing it.
and trying to, and also kind of trying to act like nonchalant. I mean, because they're playing it so wink to the screen that like it's not nonchalant.
Yeah.
But like stuff with her not knowing Miss Hart's name over and over again, like she can't remember her first name. I wonder if that's like the spell, or are we just supposed to think she's just the most callous person? Which either one is interesting, but but you were asking like what other stuff am I intrigued by? The power of the spell is definitely one.
Yeah.
hmm
And I thought it was alluded to specifically her shape, but I think that Sashiro Zameda was great in this episode, and I thought that it was because we talk about the spunkers, like obviously you expect Patty LuPone to pop because she's a legend and an icon.
Yeah.
And Ali On, I'm not as familiar with her work, but I'm someone who I've watched a lot of SNL, and I watched honestly most of Sashiro's time on SNL. I watched basically every episode, and I always thought she was really underrated. I mean, I felt bad for her because she was really only hired when it was pointed out that they did not have a black woman on the cast for like 5 years. And so she kind of, I feel like, got a short end of a stick on SNL, and then hadn't really had a major career afterwards. And I think that like she really shines in this episode, and like I care about her. Like I don't. It's still kind of unclear what her backstory is, but like she's dealing with something similar to Agatha. Where,
Well,
like,
besides being a scammer.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. She's
Well, she says a man stole her magic and bound her. So
And he bounded
like,
her.
and then we see that doctor, and he's like drowning her like old school how they used to drown witches.
Oh, word.
And
How they
so
used to drown the
like
witches.
that's the kind of stuff that I'm saying, like, because it doesn't take as much
Yep.
time as I think people believe, but
no.
just a little, like a minute or two every episode for someone's
Mhm.
backstory, it just does wonder for the whole show. And hers was so intriguing because I don't know that much about that character, and they gave her something that made me go, hey, wait a minute, what's that? Like I see why she's on this road.
And I think that her journey mirrors Agatha's a lot. And I think that the moment between her and Agatha were like, Agatha clearly
Traitorous
afterwards
much?
wants to act like she's kind of, that there's clearly some type of admiration or understanding between them. And Agatha would never admit it really, but it's like they're both really dealing with someone taking away their powers.
Yeah.
And the moment between her and the teen. Where the teen kind of gets like a little bit aggressive with her, where she's like when she brings up Mephisto and all that stuff, like it's like a edge to the teen where I'm like, that there's just so much there, and that character is so intriguing.
Yeah.
Well, and what he says, I tweeted this after the first 2 episodes. I got Joe Locke is a star. Like I think he just he's a star. But the thing that he says is a lot of interesting things happened to me when I was 13 too, and that again, like exactly what you're saying, Rod. Like because Jake and I have talked about this before. Like, obvious can work. There's nothing wrong with some things in TV being obvious if they're executed well, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you could tell very clearly that whoever he is, something happened to him at 13,
Yes.
right? And that's, I think,
Yeah.
where you see that edge come from, when she's like, she wouldn't even recognize her own son if she saw him. And you could even see, like, he goes from the edge to being crestfallen, which then in turn plays with our idea of, like, are you her son? Which, again, I don't think he is. But keep playing with me about it. Keep messing with me about it.
Agatha is clearly protective of him, but at the same time, like, there's moments where she doesn't, like, when she's like, let him drink the wine, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, she don't want to bother
And
him.
and then, like, at the near the end, when she needs to drink the wine, and he almost commands her to drink it, and then when they kind of put the emphasis on, like, wait, what? You put a little bass in your voice. He's like, because we really need to get out of here. And you're like, oh, I like these acting choices. I like these writing choices, and you're just making me want to know who this little motherfucker is.
So I do have a quick question for you three, though, because there's something that I've been thinking about as I watch. Agatha, like, when they're in the car, she asks him, like, oh, where are you from? And she can't hear him because of the sigil, which I'm sure we'll touch on in a little bit. And then, like, the more she tries to ask him, the more she can't hear him, et cetera, et cetera. But how much, because again, I do think a big part of it is somebody took Agatha's agency, Wanda, in her mind. But I have wondered, because of the point you just made, Rod, about how easily she fluctuates between disdain for this little motherfucker to, like, oh, I'm going to protect you, the mama bear. How much of it, because of her character development, because we saw it in WandaVision, does she partly feel guilty for thinking that Wanda's now dead? Like, she feels responsible for leading her down that road. And so and Jake, you said this a couple minutes ago. How much of it is she's just pretending she doesn't care? And in turn, are we inside her psychological breakdown as she's still trying to break out of Wanda's spell? Like, she's still not free from it or whatever, because there's just so much of it that I'm like, I feel like you kind of know who this kid is. Like, the way you're treating him, I'm like, I could see that you would know who he is, even have some inkling who he is. So I'm curious if you guys think that, like, is there some grief towards what she did to Wanda from her, that she's like, all right, I have to go on this journey to make it right?
Jake, you go on that first.
I don't think so, only because I don't think that she thinks about the kid. Like, the kid part, I think that a lot of it is, especially with the stuff that's been seeded, is I do think that what it ultimately is a maternal instinct that she is dealing with giving up her son. I don't know, because, like, I think if she realized that it was one of Wanda's kids, I think that she actually would be a little, like, uncomfortable, not protective. That would be my read.
I think she genuinely, at times, wonders if that's actually her son, because there is this, especially the drinking wine part, where she immediately jumps on it. I don't think she would do that in any other instance, if not for feeling that is her kid. And as far as the spell, it may not be Wanda's spell, because I do think with the help of Teen and Rio, they were able to excise her from that. I do believe there is something additional going on that we don't know about yet, that will probably become clear in the weeks to come, because everybody's right here. She is vacillating between all of these emotions at the same time. It just makes you wonder, where is that coming from? It just can't be that she's just having kind of like some flip outs or crashing out or whatever. It does feel like there's something more devious at stake as far as she's concerned. So that part is fascinating. I mean, when you mention about, like, her own character development and whatnot, and are we seeing her psychosis to a degree? I think that is fair, because that was a genuinely terrified Agatha as she is watching the crib and seeing the dark hold, and almost like recognizing what a terrible choice she had made. And the fact that it takes her out of that, and she's in front of the rest of the witches again, and just quickly, and just such a snap decision in a second, because she doesn't want them to see her in a vulnerable position, she goes back to her deprecating self towards the rest of them. So that part, Yeah, I think this is why when you put Catherine Hahn at the head of a show like this, and it has the vibe that it does, man, it just feels like it's just come so easy for her because she's just making it. She's just making these emotions and everything and vacillating between all of these things really impressive in terms of just viewership and seeing where that goes, and then makes you wonder what it actually is, because you could easily be like, yes, Dalbin, yes, she is having a psychic breakdown, a mental breakdown or whatnot, or is she under control, or is this is just the madness of her generally. All of these things are at stake, all of these things are in play. So that is a great point by you in terms of just like getting the wheels turning as far as what that actually means.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens going with that. I do want to talk about Deborah Jo Rupp because again, just a wonderful performance by her. The comedic timing, getting stuck in the mud and almost falling through. Her just being so quick to drink the wine immediately. And shout out to the puffy faces, no CGI. They did that again. This show, for the majority, and they've made the cast has gone out of their way to say this. Most of this stuff is practical. Very little to no CGI or anything like that. They wanted to make all of this stuff practical, so I think it was cool that they had all them puffy faces and dealing with the poison and whatnot. But as we kind of send Sharon off, question mark, because you never know with these things. People being dead, do they really stay dead? And things along those lines.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think people make a big deal about how she's dead, and then they cut to a funny song. I think
funny.
Her method of death is very much something that feels like it's going to be reversed in some way, because if they didn't make a big enough deal of her death, that's my having watched a lot of TV and movies brain going. Yeah. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, then I think this is actually just sloppily done. But I think that they don't make that big of a deal of it. And honestly, in a show like this, it would feel silly, in my opinion, if a main character dies just because they forgot to give her a potion in time. Like, that feels like a little, really? Like, that, because that actually does nothing. That's just an accident,
Yeah, is that more of a this is how we have to get Rio back in here? And if it's that simple, then yeah, I would agree that wouldn't work. But if there's a larger plan at stake for her to come back for some reason, if part of the trial or the trials is to revive her at some point, then you could be cooking with a little fish grease, as far as I'm concerned. So I like that idea. Rod, what did you think about Deborah Jo Rupp's performance? Because I got to tell you, just thinking about all the times that I've seen her in that '70s show and her in the series so far, I really have enjoyed the energy that she brings to this show.
So if she really is, first of all, the performance is masterful. It's great. It's like it's so funny. It's so perfectly stated. Just and her being the wild card in the house, drinking the glass of wine so fast. I think she drank 2 glasses, going through it off there's just something amazing about that character. But I will say, if she is dead, I'm so okay with it, because I think she went out so dope. Like, it was such a, because I can't think of anything more Wizard of Oz than a death like that. Like, that's how people died in the Wizard. I was like, what the fuck? And it's just like, and we're moving down the road. And it's like, whoa, that seems way too fast. So there's something about it, the silliness of it and the casualness of it, that fits with Agatha. Like, I don't think it would fit on any other one of these shows, but there's something about how Agatha is always playing everything nonchalant, even when it's super serious. How she makes crazy mistakes and risk and just brushes them off. How she easily lies to these people, even within her coven. She's so manipulative and is so open about it. And she is a bad guy. Like, she is a villainous. So there's something about using that woman so callously, knowing she would be out of her depth, and then her dying, and you don't even remember her fucking name. There's something about that makes for Agatha is dope. Like, but once again, I wouldn't necessarily say that if it happened in another show. And I'm willing to see how they play it out. I'd also love for the character to come back, even if she comes back to get revenge, even if she comes back as a gag, even if you just pop back up in Westview or whatever, and she's next door again, and you're like, whoa, how did that happen? Because I love the actress and the character that much that I'd be willing to go, okay, but I'm totally fine with this if this is her death. It was just so funny.
Jake, I know you love this is kind of like my favorite thing when I get to ask you about like character actors and their performances. Feel free, go ahead, Deborah Jo.
Yeah, she's just such a delight, and I think that Marvel's been generally pretty good at, as opposed to a lot of other franchises. And when they don't do this, I kind of hate it. Like that Marvel's been really good at casting actors who are not already in the nerd franchise circuit. Like, I feel like casting people with energies that are not, like, whenever Marvel casts someone in a role that's already been in like 6 different nerdy things, and all the nerd sites are going wild, like, oh my god, someone's joining the MCU, it's like, they'll be fine, but like, that's just not that interesting to me. And I think that that's something that when Marvel doesn't do that is when it's at its best. And so Deborah Jo Rupp's energy, she has a traditional like sitcom energy that is not big sci-fi fantasy at all. Right. And I think that I really like the way that she's in this episode, where she's like legitimately upset, but clearly doesn't understand what's going on. It kind of is, manic, because she's obviously like really mad, but she also was going crazy because she didn't know that, like, she's like, what the hell's the Witch's Road? And now she's on the Witch's Road, and now she's in a Nancy Meyers horror movie. So like, I felt like her energy was really nice, and I if she is gone for the rest of the show, I'm a little disappointed, because I feel like that energy is something that is helpful. Because you have the teen, but the teen is super interested in all this stuff and knows a lot of stuff, and I feel like having someone give the realistic reaction to the horrors that are going on, and also seeing her grow.
Let me ask you this too, though, Jake, because like, you got to make room for Aubrey Plaza at some point, right? Like,
I agree,
and
I mean, you absolutely have to. Yes,
Hart doesn't have a backstory because she's not supposed to be here. Like, she doesn't have like a flashback or something. We could be like, oh, this is why you're on the road. I just enjoy the actress and the character that much. But story wise, if this is the end of her story, I would
that's
not,
fine. Yeah. I don't need anything more from her as a character. I think that having a person who is completely vulnerable is interesting for Agatha and the other characters.
I agree.
I think that like that risk, that like what is a bit unmooring, and
what occurred at the end of the episode here, with them trying to save her.
Like, what is a little bit concerning, because I'm sure they'll figure out a way to make it work. But like, what was compelling? What her presence in that house made it more compelling, because she is not a witch and doesn't know how to handle these sorts of things.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like, that is very interesting to me. And also, I'm interested to see what happens if a human's on the Witch's Road. It's like, I was hoping that she would get to the end, because I think there'll be something interesting, like, what does it mean?
I think you found out. I think we got the question answered.
Yeah,
if
true.
you're a human on the Witch's Road, you get fucked up.
You're not supposed to be.
You're not supposed to be there, and it's fucked up that Agatha went and got her, knowing how dangerous this shit is. She's such a fucked up person for doing this shit to her, and can't remember her fucking name.
I agree with Rod, man.
That's crazy.
So I agree with Rod. So Jake, I love her too, Mrs. Knight from Friends. She seduces Phoebe's brother and like all that. Like, so when I saw her at WandaVision, I knew she was gonna be here. I said, oh, this is gonna be good, because she's really funny. But I also think, so I'm very much over this, like, we need to humanize our villains thing. Like, I'm really tired of it. Like, and so Agatha she's not a good person.
This is why the show is cooking to me so far. Yes, they have kept on that, like, yo, she's not a good person. Sucks. No, she's terrible. Not a good person.
A hero would definitely bring her back or mourn her. And Agatha did neither. And I was in that second, which is the very end of the episode, just why I thought they crushed it. In that 1 second, I was like, oh God, I'm rooting for a fucking villain to get their power back. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the one who's wrong watching this.
She casually says it, and I just love how the rest of the characters just gave a what the fuck? and then the episode ends. It's just so perfect. So perfect.
Who's Sharon?
I agree. I know. I agree. Like everybody's looking at her like, are you out of your fucking mind? This woman just died.
But
and that, I love it. I think it's great.
If you're the showrunner, director, or whatever, I'd be figuring out an excuse to get her back. I don't give a fuck if it's a flashback. I don't give a fuck if she was haunting.
I mean,
Agatha.
I think what will be interesting to me, and this is just spitballing, and this show is already made, so who cares? But like, if she is like a haunting presence with them, like that, I think would be very interesting.
Yeah, that would be dope.
Yeah,
that would be fun.
And she's the thing that comes out the TV in the Ring inspired episode. I would kill for that. I would die for that.
I don't need her to be alive through all of this, but I feel like if her death, if they just move on from it and is not remarked upon again after episode 3, then I think that is kind of a waste of the character. If it's just, if her death only exists to be a moment in episode 3 into 4, but if it's a thing that is felt still, because if the show completely moves on from that death, then the show is being callous about her as a character too. You know?
Also,
I don't think
the other thing with these characters though is none of them know her. So like none of them have any previous. They only know her as the woman that came on the richest road with them, who shouldn't have been there. So like, I can see a way that she's not brought up a lot by them. The biggest thing is what we learn about Agatha here, and what they clearly learned about Agatha too, because they are now the stand-in for us as an audience, because their face when she doesn't know who she is like, who the fuck are we on this trip with? Like, what is wrong with her?
And basically relying on to lead us.
Yes.
In this aspect
because
you can't trust her
because
for
they
shit.
believe she's done it. No, and Rod, exactly, because they don't know if she, because now the non-trusting you, like, okay, we can't trust you with this innocent woman, we can't trust you with the teen, and if it's revealed that you haven't walked this road before, even though you're lying to us and telling us that you have, like like we're talking about one of the most dastardly people in this corner. Like she's like,
she say whatever. She told them people that was the Earth Witch, dog. Like she's a wild,
the Green
she's a
Witch.
wild boy.
I just think that's it makes this show so compelling because we're not used to seeing them lean into. I mean, that's one of the things that upset me so much with the John Walker character. Like, yo, if he gonna do the shit that he did in episode 4, let him do it. Like, let him go all the way that way. Yes. But then they held it back because they wanted to make this character have like this vulnerability and this kind of, we want to give him a redemption chance and things along those lines. But if you have a real villain, like, yo, lean into that thing, lean into it, because you can really
I don't think that this show's going to end with Agatha being a real villain. I think you guys are being a bit not.
Oh, you think so?
I don't think that this is just not. It's not Marvel's MO. Marvel is not, and also like, if she's the main character of the show and she's going to go through growth, she doesn't really have a place to grow into being more of a villain. Like, I don't know how this show ends in an interesting way with her still being really bad. Like, I maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like the stuff that they're seeding is her learning to get. You mentioned like learning to deal with her grief or whatever. I don't think her learning to deal with her grief ends with her being more evil. She already was fucking evil.
All right, so because you say that, let me ask you this. Yeah, and it's a fair point. Let me ask you this: what would you like to see?
I would like to see her staying like morally gray. I don't expect her to be a good person, but I think that it will have to, that in some way, shape, or form, at the end, she will make, her growth will be making some type of sacrifice for someone else. Because her whole thing, the defining characteristic we learn about her when we first learn about her is that she's cast out from her coven, that she is covenless, that is her, like, we learn witches have covens, and Agatha is super powerful, but she doesn't have a coven. That is her central issue. So clearly her becoming part of a coven is the thing that we're tracking. And so I think that doing something on behalf of the coven, the people who's around her, is the choice she's going to make, and basically learning that there is value to being around other people. Well, I don't think that means that she's going to be a good person, but like, that is the thing that we were asked to track in the beginning, and I feel like if they abandon that to just like, because also we've already had a show where she's the villain. Like, I don't need her to still do that again. And so I think we have so many characters that she is getting close to and is rejecting on and off, that we are setting it up for a classic character who acts like she doesn't care the whole time, reveals she cares at the end. Like that is the arc that we're kind of watching.
And then potentially gets screwed
Gets
by
screwed.
the bigger
Yeah,
villain.
I could see her making a sacrifice and then getting screwed by Mephisto, and that making her more angry about something else. I'm not saying it, but like, I think that like she is going through positive growth now because she's around other people. Like that is just the show that we're watching.
Is she
and
going
I think
through positive growth? Because
I think so.
Didn't know Sharon's name after she just.
I
died.
know. I think that she's callous.
Here's what I'll say though. I think people like people like fake Steve Rogers are more like anti-heroes or whatever, where they're like the heroes that just do shit in a fucked up. They see themselves as heroes and they do shit in a fucked up way. Agatha, I don't think she sees herself as a hero or even trying to.
No, I don't think she does at all.
And so I think it's interesting that, to me, I don't know what the end game is for the show. Like, I don't feel like this is a paint by numbers. She will become a better person at the end of this, that we're like, thank God we went on that journey to watch her become somebody. I'm not, because it didn't seem like they really had a plan to do this show in the first place. It just, everyone wanted it. And I don't know what their plans are for her after the show either. Like, I could see a world where they're like, where this ends with like, hey, we did it. Yeah. We did the show. It was fun. And this is a great cast. We're not going to be able to get these people back every single time we want to. And who's going to wait another 3-4 years? They're already saying they're cutting back on a lot of these Disney shows and ideas and stuff. There's a potential to do some fun stuff with this character in a not in unconventional way. And I'm so open-minded. I won't say anything could ruin it for me, because it's all execution. There's a way to execute this where her heart grows 3 sizes like the Grinch, and we're like, oh man, that was so well done. And I'm so glad to see Agatha on the side of the angels, or not being a villain. Yeah. There's a way to end this shit where she like absorbs all these women's powers and she's super powerful again, and she's like, gotcha, it was me all along again. Fuck y'all, I didn't change it all.
I think if that happens though, they have to do a feint towards the other thing, because I don't think we can just watch a straight line of I'm evil, I'm evil, I'm evil, I'm evil, I'm evil.
Oh, of course. There's got to be. I agree in the sense that with if you just add just a pinch, just a little smidge of a morally great character, that's totally fine. Yeah. But if you keep the essence as what this is, because I cannot say this enough, the end of that episode is hilarious, and also just like it paints such a perfect picture of just thinking about the ballad and the way that she just like excoriates them afterwards, just so she could try and get the powers, get them to hit her so she could absorb their powers. Just simple stuff like that. It just shows you like how devious this character is, and I love the fact that they're not shy about it.
To me, there's something so funny about a drawn out, long ass joke. And a 9-episode joke of it's Agatha all along again, I think I would die. I would literally die at the finale.
That'd be funny.
I wouldn't be able to come back on the show because they'd be like, Rod died Wednesday night.
Yeah, it's like I can just imagine. Hi, we recorded our regular episode, but we wanted to do a message up top because a friend of the show, Black Guy Tips, he actually passed away.
Morrow had a chance to do the funniest thing ever, and they did it.
You'll start calling him the black guy who tipped over. That's what you're gonna call him.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Now? Like,
never came. I'd be just like motherfucking Miss Hart, dog, if they did that shit. That's crazy.
and then we'd be like, "Who's Rod?" Yeah, see it all play. Yeah. I mean, I will tell you. I think so. So I think I'm with Rod in the sense that like, if it turns out that like, this is to answer your question, AC. If it turns out that the growth that she went through is to protect Teen, and it leads to her protecting other children, namely other fantastic children that are coming, but she's still a piece of shit, I'm good with it. If the only thing she's caring about is protecting these babies, if that is it, you know what I mean? Like for her, the sacrifice is like, because she feels she has to make up for whatever happened with her son. I also think that there is something, Jake, to your point. If we get her starting to like care about these witches, only for her to take their power to protect Teen, it's one of those things where it's like, that's fucked up. but I understand. But I understand. Yeah.
Yes.
I think no matter what, whether it ends with her being better or worse, I
Right.
think the thing that is interesting is that I think whatever decision she makes is motivated by her learning to care again, and that can make someone do something really evil and make someone do something really good,
or something very good. Right? Yes.
And it's can I throw a joke out that you can tell me if I should delete, because I don't know if I should say this out loud.
That's great.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Holy shit! I love doing this show, man. So there was one thing that I feel like we haven't addressed that we should, and I mentioned the whole idea of Rio being potentially Lady Death, and I want to go to Patti LuPone's character Lilia as we see her trauma, and that had a lot of Mistress Death vibes. Let me tell you that much. So, let's go around the room. Dalbin, like this is kind of your corner. What are you feeling about seeing something like that, and does that lend credence to the idea that Lady Death is around the corner?
100%. Well, because I also think that you didn't do Lady Death with Thanos at all. You know what I mean? Like you didn't do the whole him courting her and trying to destroy the universe. And Lady Death is at times in the comics one of the most simplistic characters in the comics. Like very straightforward. But there's so much, like even like her relationship with Deadpool in the comics is really funny because Wade Wilson can't die, so he never gets to be with her, but he's in love with her, right? So like there's a whole lot of that in it. I absolutely think she's there because now you also have a chance now to tie her into what comes next with the universes dying and like what role does she play in that. And Aubrey Plaza, Jake, one of the things that I love, and you guys talked about the Penguin also, so I'll tie this into Catherine Hahn. Colin Farrell, for a really long time, I think people forgot how good an actor he was. This is the brother who did a movie in a phone booth, just him and 24 Jack Bauer talking on the phone to him or whatever. It's just him.
Although that is one of the top 10 worst New York accents in a movie of all time. I like that movie, but that's a bad accent.
1000%. But Colin Farrell in the Penguin, I think, like in the Batman and now in the Penguin, I think is reminding folks like, yo, the brother can act. Catherine Hahn has also, I think, is like showing folks that she's not just the chick that told John C. Reilly she was going to ball him up and put him up inside her in Step Brothers, right? Like she can act.
Such a great scene.
She can act, and Aubrey Plaza can also act. Like I texted Jake, I got to see a early screening of this movie that she's in that's coming out in about a week, where she plays like the future version of herself. She acts her ass off in that movie, and so I would love to see her just do more. And Lady Death is a character she can do so much more with. Yeah,
I also feel like Aubrey Plaza, I think, might have been reticent to do like a small part in a Marvel thing, but I feel like if you say to Aubrey Plaza, you can play the manifestation of death, I think that she's like, I don't care, where do I sign? That's, because Aubrey Plaza, let's not forget, wrote a children's book about Christmas witches, so like she's in it for the she's in it.
Yeah, I think around the corner, AC. It's around the corner. It's coming. It's our time now.
I agree with you. I was thinking about we ain't see her in the episode, and I just think like, yo, there is something about those eyes. There's something about those eyes that I don't know. It just does something for me. It does something to me. I just gotta say, I gotta get out there. To get that out there. I mean, goodness gracious.
It's a safe space, AC. It's a safe space. We're not judging.
I certainly can't wait to see her show up again, because I'm assuming with poor Sharon departing, we're gonna see Miss Rio come back into the programming next week. So that should be a lot of fun. Goodness gracious.
As for me, with the Lady Death thing, it's so interesting because I think Lady Death as a character is not that interesting in the comics. So I would hope the MCU would spice it up for Lady Death on the screen if that's what she turns out to be. Because in the comics, she's mostly stoic and silent, and it's the characters talking to her.
Oh, but you can see Aubrey ain't that.
Right, exactly.
That's what I love.
And so she has so much agency in this, and she's talking so much, and she's like on the screen doing action. So I kind of want to see her be like it. If she's Lady Death, I just need the portrayal to stay closer to this than the comics, because comic book wise, it's like Thanos, bro, you killing all these people. This woman ain't said a fucking word. What the fuck are you? She's like a skeleton in a dress. Like, what is happening Like y'all smoked some good shit before y'all wrote this
You
character.
say skeleton and a dress. Tim Burton
Yeah.
just got hard. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah,
Oh,
man.
my
So
goodness.
I
Yeah.
like whatever they do, I need her to be like Rio if you're gonna be Lady Death.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very excited to see her come back because I feel like there's room now. That Miss Hart is gone. Rest in peace. Rest in power, Queen.
Rest in peace, Sharon.
But I need
That's right.
I need that Aubrey Plaza back, dog. You know what I mean? We need that.
That's right.
I still think the show was humming the most when she and Catherine Hahn were on sharing screen. And I'm not even just saying it for the horny reasons y'all are saying it, which I totally understand.
No.
But just that shit.
No, I agree. The relationship.
Yeah, that shit was fun. You know what I mean? I was like, what is this?
It's
22nd time.
No, I agree. No, I like Jake. We've talked about it before. I agree with the joke you're gonna cut, but I also agree with what Rob said. I think when you take two talents and put them across from each other and just let them act, you know what I mean? Like I think it works really well. So, and both of them are talents. Yes.
Yeah. So I think the show could use an injection of that energy coming out of this, and you know, get a little more actiony and stuff. That could be fun. And so yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to with that character.
Yeah.
Snip. Okay. So as we spin this forward, now that we have more information about episode 3, going into episode 4, I'd like to go around the room. Dalbin, I'll start with you. What is one thing that you're most interested in seeing with this series going forward?
I want to see where we end up with Agatha, if it's because I agree with what you guys are saying. I would. There's very few things that I think could happen that would make me be like, oh, this was some bullshit. Like, this was terrible. You know what I mean? But I very much am curious to see where Agatha is at the end of it. If it is that she grew to care for Teen and protect Teen, and and does she go on to do something else, or do they circumvent expectations and we find out that this was all in her head, like a fucking episode of Lost or something, and it's just like, oh fuck, like, all right. I'm very curious to see where she is at the end of it, where Agatha is at the end of it, because I think her role in what's coming next is really exciting. I think it could be exciting if they go that route. So I'm excited to see that. I think that's going to be really cool. And the witches, anything with the witches, I'm all in for.
Oh, and yeah, very interesting. Jake, how about you, sir?
I'm interested, like I said, to see like what we were alluding to. What does Agatha, not just Agatha, what does everyone end up doing at the end of the Witch's Road? Because in any story about people going on a quest to get the thing they really want, things always get complicated. No one has ever written a story where people go on a quest to get the one thing they desire, and the ending of it is everyone gets what they desire and they all go home. Like, that's not how these things work. And so I'm interested to see where these characters all end up as we all learn more about them, who lives, who dies, who, I just think that's like, we're not done with complications on the Witch's Road. And I think what happens on the Witch's Road will change what people get at the end of the Witch's Road.
Yes. Well, very well said. How about you, sir? How about you, Rod?
So many things. First of all, the Teen. That little motherfucker was showing some shit this week. He wasn't all nice and cool like the first 2 times, bro. He had, when he was like, drink it, I was like, bro, who are you talking to? Fuck? Like, you just an observer, dog. What are you supposed to be doing here? And then when he had his arm on that fucking counter when he was talking to Shazir, and he had that look in his face, like, why you bringing up Mephisto and shit? I was like, yeah, man, I'm really intrigued as to this kid's, like, what is his motivation? What is the mystery? Patti LuPone's character, Lilia, her fucking, like, I guess she been alive since like the fucking 1500s or some shit. Cause like that whole flashback thing she had with the dead looking woman that looked up at her and shit. Like, really want to know her backstory. Obviously, Shazir's character's backstory.
So it's Sashir, which I remember she actually had a joke. Her, as a comedian, she had a joke about people would mispronounce her name and she would admonish them for not saying a traditional black name. And the joke is that it's actually her parents are big nerds and it's a Star Trek character.
Well, you know what
So that's
throws
why
me off with her? It's not the Sajir. I was thinking about Zamata when I said it. Is it Zamata or Zamata?
It's Zameda. It's as I
Zamata. That's
because
it.
the great thing about SNL is they say the name at the beginning of every episode. So Sashir Zameda is the way
Thank
that
you.
Don Pardo
Thank
said
you.
it.
Thank you. Because I was thinking, I've been thinking about that for 2 weeks now, and I keep not looking it up. So, but yeah, I definitely want to see what's going on with her character as well. And then like the characters whose mom was like a rock and roll star and also a witch.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
her
Lila,
story is getting like the
Seems
least.
very tragic.
But yeah, it's the saddest, but it's getting like the least. And I know
Yeah.
that she gonna go off at some point too. So yeah,
Mhm.
all that stuff is what I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to. I'm not even looking to the end of the road yet. I'm just straight up looking at like what's going on next week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think in the immediate, I think what does Rio's entrance into the group, what kind of energy does that create between everybody? That's going to be a lot of
Yes.
fun to watch the interplay between everybody. I
And
think
how
what
did
you
she get
mentioned,
down
Rod.
there?
Yeah,
You read my mind, Rod.
Cause she didn't.
well,
She
I
didn't.
mean,
She wasn't at the
Because
door with
the
them.
door
Like,
closed. The door closed after
right.
they sung the ballad. The
Like
door
she got to
Yeah,
closed.
call
so she-
Mephisto, see if he could get her an Uber. Like, what's up?
Ring them up.
yeah, how many stars you think they rate Mephisto on Uber?
Oh man.
5 stars.
Someone's like, oh my god,
5 pointed stars.
he took a detour through hell, but I don't want him to lose his job, so I'll give him 4 stars.
Right. Right.
For
I still
whatever
tipped
reason, he
him.
was cursing a lot. I don't know what happened. Why he cursing so much? I don't know what happened. I may have to
Also,
get
there's
that
no
away.
more foreshadowing that Miss Hart was gonna die than her being the dumb motherfucker to go off the road right away.
That's true.
It's like it's in the
Yeah.
song.
Yeah, I have a question. guys, because as you can tell, I apologize for those watching a video. You probably saw I was a little distracted. You know, I come up with when we're doing pods, I'll come up with a dumb thing to Photoshop. Are you guys familiar with the meme where people Photoshop dead people's faces next to XXX Tentacion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because I just did one of Mrs. Hart that I will tweet out.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
Nice.
Nice.
All right.
Oh my goodness.
Rest
But
in
yeah,
peace.
so yeah. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I think that the real energy part, who put the spell on the teen in the first place, and why is that, the sigil there, and will we get any more credence to that? What does the teen know? I think I love the fact that Rod has laid out the reasoning that it seems like he knows more than we think he does. And also I want to get back to the part in the first episode where the dude just was breaking out spells and shit.
Right.
And all of a sudden we haven't seen it for a little bit. So I want to see what's happening with that. Does he have more magic at play? What is he hiding? Things along those lines. And then getting back to Agatha, just continuing to deliver this performance that we're getting so far. And then on top of that, what elaboration are we going to get about Nicholas Scratch? And will it be a variation of the comic books where the Salem 7 is run by Nicholas Scratch? And is he behind them coming after her ultimately? So like those things are what I'm looking forward to going with this series. And I think that's a great way to close it. As always, these episodes have been fun. I love the fact that this show has provided us with a lot of fun moments so far, and looking forward to talking about it next week.
Sorry.
But
One last thing. What is the next?
yeah, sure.
What is the next room? That's the next. What is the next trial?
Oh yeah, what's the next trial? Like we have seen a clip of them going to like some 70s themed party. And them all looking like I think the teen said like we look like an album cover.
It's the new what TV show are we mocking next week? What's the next trial? So I'm into that.
I think they go old school for the next one. I think like because I think they they went Nancy Meyers for us this week. I think they go a little bit old school. Like maybe it's Carrie or something.
And
like
I
that.
do think it was Big Little Lies they were mocking. I'm sorry, Jake, but one of the characters.
Well, I think Big Little Lies is ripping off Nancy Myers. That's
Thank you.
Straight up.
I'm with it. I don't want no smoke.
It's a little bit of both. No,
one.
Because
is the
one of the
kitchen
characters
joke?
says in the show, she's like,
Is it
small little liar,
Oh, no.
small big lady. And I'm like, whoa, okay.
For sure. The thing is, the kitchen joke is like such a Nancy Meyers joke. Like it's
Yes.
to the
Big
point where
time.
she once got mad. Like she's like, why does someone obsess over my kitchens? So, but because they're nice.
Yeah.
Yes, and on that note, we will conclude this episode with a shout out to our guests, both Rod and Dalbin, for joining us this week. A lot of fun as always having you guys on. Dalbin, first, where can we find you, my friend? Where can we find what you do? Turn on the Jets because the Jets are 2-1. Let's go, baby.
2-1, baby. And all we've had to do is give our team to a weirdo and an incel at quarterback. That's all we've had to do, apparently.
Amen.
DA _ Osorio. Once again, happy birthday, Rod. Super happy to be back with you guys, man. Big love. And always happy to pinch hit like Matt Stairs whenever needed. So I appreciate you guys.
Wonderful. Love you, big dog. And Rod, where can we find you, my friend? The Black Guy Who Tips.
TheBlackGuyWhoTips.com. You can find everything about the podcast. Search the podcast, The Black Guy Who Tips. You can also look me up on Twitter, X, whatever you're calling it, The Black Guy Who it's Rodimus Prime on there. And yeah, appreciate y'all for having me. It was fun.
As always. And Jake, how about you, sir?
You can follow me on Twitter at the Jake Christie. You can follow me on TikTok at the Jake Christie.
1 million on TikTok, Jake. Let's go.
I started actually a subscriber program on TikTok where I'm going to be doing an episode a week called The Museum of Not Twitter, where I'm going to be covering a thing that, because people keep requesting stuff that did not start on Twitter, and I have a very strict rule that I only like to cover things that start on Twitter, except with the show where I cover stuff that didn't.
Wonderful. Yeah, make sure you check out that TikTok. It's really incredible in terms of just like innovative stuff. This is the peak of creativity.
I don't know why I'm both very happy I decided to do it once a day because that makes it have a lot less pressure because I don't need to worry about it being really good because I'll do another one the next day. But every time I have to record like 3 in one night because I'm going to be busy the next 2 days, I'm like, why did I do it once a day?
Yeah, wonderful stuff,
Anyway.
man. Make sure you check out Jake. What's that TikTok name
It's
you got?
it's at the Jake Christie. It's the same everywhere.
All right, cool. Wonderful stuff. And of course, you can follow me on the Twitter at AnthonyCanton_3. Follow the show on all platforms at MC University Pod. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Get those numbers up there. Patreon.com, as I mentioned earlier. Support us. We still got a Bad Boys 2 episode coming out soon. We're gonna record that next week. So looking forward to that. And along those lines, appreciate everybody for listening and supporting. And thank you for supporting me throughout this very trying time over the last 3 years. And our long national nightmare is over as Mephisto is in the MCU. So for Rod and Dalbin and Jake, I'm Anthony Canton III. This has been Marvel Cinematic University, and we will talk to you next time.